story is narrated by an unnamed monster hunter who travels to Tempest Mountain in the Catskills Range in 1921. After reports of various attacks by a group of unidentified creatures against the local inhabitants reaches the media. A month before, an unusually large, destructive thunderstorm had drifted over the region. Many homes were destroyed, seemingly by the storm. But upon closer inspection, the destruction seemed to be left by an enraged beast. The affected area, originally home to only 75 citizens, was completely destroyed, leaving no survivors. Gathering what information he can from the locals, the narrator finds out that most of the legends surround the foreboding Bertans mansion, a century-old Dutch homestead which has been disregarded by the police, as it is apparently abandoned. The narrator, bringing with him two companions as his bodyguards, named George Bennett and William Toby, enters the mansion at night, just when another thunderstorm approaches. He takes up residence in the room of Jan Martens, a member of the family believed to have been murdered. Despite their careful preparation, keeping watch in shifts, and sleeping armed, the group eventually drift off to sleep. The hunter wakes up to discover both of his companions missing, and in a flash of lightning, witnesses a demonic shadow briefly cast upon the mansion's chimney by a grotesque monster. Neither of his companions are ever seen again. Traumatized by his experience in the mansion, the hunter continues his investigation. He confides in a journalist named Arthur Munro, telling him of the things he has experienced so far. Munro agrees to help him, and the two scour the countryside for any clues to the murderous creature or possible remains of the Martens family. They find no trace, but manage to uncover an ancestral diary which once belonged to the Martenses. All the while, the hunter has the constant feeling of being watched. He and Munro are trapped by yet another thunderstorm and seek shelter in an abandoned cabin, where the hunter thinks back to the horrible events in the Martens mansion. As an unusually large thunderbolt crashes across the sky, Munro walks over to the window to survey the damage. The storm soon clears up, but Munro doesn't move from the window. And when the hunter tries to rouse him, he finds his face has been hideously gnawed away by some unseen horror outside. Having spent several weeks delving into the Martens family history, The narrator returns to Tempest Mountain, determined to solve the mystery once and for all. Now convinced that the horror plaguing the mountain is connected to the Mertens family. He believes the entity to be the ghost of Jan Mertens. He has learned that the mansion was built by Gerrit Mertens, a Dutch merchant from New Amsterdam, who disliked the British conquest of the North American colonies and constructed the remote mansion to take advantage of its solitude. There, Mertens' family grew increasingly isolated from the outside world. They soon grew to intermarrying with the various squatters and servants living around the estate. The resulting offspring spread out across the valley and eventually became the current population of mountain men. But the core family stuck to their mansion, becoming even more insular. Mertens, struck by an unusual restlessness, had joined the colonial army, and he was the only source of information on the rest of the family that had ever reached the outside world. However, upon returning home 6 years later, he found himself treated as an outsider and made plans to leave, which he told a friend about in letters. This correspondence soon stopped, however, when his friend visited the mansion in 1763. He was told that Mertens had been fatally struck by lightning during a thunderstorm. Jan's friend did not believe this, especially due to the Mertens' disturbing behavior, and upon discovering the grave, realized that Mertens had been murdered. Though the family were not convicted due to lack of evidence, they were completely shunned by their neighbors. The Mertenses soon disappeared entirely, the only sign of continued existence being an occasional light seen in the windows of the mansion, last witnessed in 1816. A posse searched the mansion, discovering that the Mertenses had seemingly disappeared. The mansion itself was in complete disarray and had several improvised additions, as it seemed like the family had kept expanding, presumably through inbreeding. The narrator finds his way to the mansion and digs up Jan Mertens' grave, hoping to find some way of setting his spirit to rest. Instead, he falls through the ground into a mysterious burrow. There, he briefly encounters a goblin-like creature lurking in the shadows, which he views through the light of his pocket torch. A sudden lightning strike hits the tunnel, allowing the narrator to quickly escape, where he sees a distant red glare. Only days later does he find out what the glare is. A burning cabin with one of the creatures inside. Returning to the Mertenses' grave, the hunter finds that the burrow he previously fell into has completely caved in. He decides to investigate the strange mounds which surround the mansion. While observing from afar, he realizes that the mounds are in fact tunnels made by the creatures. Struck by mania, he digs his way into one of the tunnels through the mansion's cellar and finds a catacomb-like system of passages. As another thunderstorm approaches, he sees countless creatures emerge from the ground. One of the weaker members of the grotesque mob is attacked and eaten by one of its compatriots. The hunter shoots one of the creatures as it straggles behind the rest of the pack, using a clap of thunder to disguise the pistol's noise. Upon closer inspection, he notices the creature's heterochromia and realizes that the deformed, hair-covered creature is in fact a member of the Mertens family, who have devolved into hideous ape-like beasts, thanks to centuries of isolation and inbreeding. The narrator remembers nothing more until waking some time later in a nearby village. Thoroughly traumatized by his experiences, he has the mansion, surrounding woods, and hillside completely destroyed with explosives, but is unable to hear his mind from the horrors that he experienced, always fearing that creatures like the Mertenses could be anywhere.